Greetings. It's February 25th, 2022. This is the second attempt to make this video. We'll see if I'm satisfied with this version and if I publish it. I just got done making a video responding to Sheila Kay and Sophia Ward. Sheila Kay wrote a lengthy response to one of the videos I made where I was responding to comments. Today's a bit of an infamous day for me and my family, and it just seems like it just seems like it's just one of those days that's just going to be forever ingrained in our family. For starters, 22 years ago, my cousin's firstborn son, Austin, was born. He's currently undergoing something right now that is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and hopefully it pans out for him. That's about all I can legitimately say about that. So, happy birthday, Austin. We just recently got news that the reason my mom is sick is that she may have cancer again. As the situation develops, I may or may not comment on that. We'll just play that one by ear. Beyond that, the reason this day sticks out so much for me and my family, 7 years ago today, we had an appointment to meet up with doctors and specialists and whatnot at Duke University Medical Center. I'm a sucker for details, and I'm a sucker for context, and I'm a sucker for trying to develop the story, but I'll try to keep this one short and to the point to the best of my abilities. So 7 years ago, we were brought to the Duke University Medical Center to have a discussion with doctors and specialists about our son Logan. At the time, he was 7 years old, 7 months, and 1 day old. It was about his condition. He was a transplant recipient. The donor had an undiagnosed condition that eventually led to a post-transplant lymphoma, cancer. So he was in cancer remission. And at that point in time, one of the organs that was transplanted, the liver, was rejecting severely, and it was failing, and it was causing all kinds of medical problems. The short version was they could attempt to fight it with medications, antibiotics, so on and so forth, dialysis, but the body was rejecting the liver and the liver was failing, so there was little hope that there was a positive outcome other than treating all the follow-on symptoms that were a result of the dominoes falling over from the original problem, all the secondary and tertiary issues. Ultimately, he would probably need another transplant, in which case he would have to be healthy enough to survive the surgery, at which point he was not, which meant he was ineligible for a transplant right now, and because of that, he may not survive long enough, let alone be healthy enough to receive another transplant. So that was that option. The second option was make peace with his prognosis, medicate him so that he's comfortable and doesn't feel any pain, and then just wait for his life journey to end. I've been dealing with this for 7 years now, so if my body language, if my demeanor, if my emotions don't seem to match that of a father who had to hold a very young child in his arms until that child expired, it's because I've been dealing with it for 7 years. Trust me when I say for the first few years I couldn't talk about it without being severely affected by it. I'm not saying it doesn't affect me anymore. I'm saying that I've had more time to wrap my head around it. And pardon my language, but it was fucking god-awful. There's no words to express what that was like. And the unfortunate truth is, only parents who've been through something similar are the only ones who can understand. And to make matters even worse, I have joined a club of people who've been through it. Even more so, people I've served with. At least 2 brothers I served with in the Marine Corps have been through something very similar. They too have lost a child unexpectedly, just, and there's nothing you can really say, there's nothing you can really do. So 7 years ago we had the meeting, and it was up to us to make a decision, and they gave us time to discuss it, process it, and deal with it. That's the wife. Looks like she made an avatar for herself. I'll be honest with you. I don't know why. I don't, psychologically, I don't know why. Rationally, I can't explain it. I could not make the decision. I knew what the answer was. I knew, rationally speaking, what the conclusion was based on the math. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't commit to it. So what probably felt like a lifetime, and yet in reality only took seconds, my wife and I had a discussion, and for some reason, some of the things that bother me about all this Me Too and women stuff is, in my world, in my view, there's a strength that women possess that men do not possess, that I think gets consistently overlooked and under-discussed. So from my perspective, I've always viewed women as strong. Maybe not physically strong, but strong in other areas. And for giving me that tangent, my wife had the strength to make the decision for us. All she asked was that I didn't resent her for it, and that I didn't fault her, and that I didn't hold it against her, and that I didn't blame her for anything. But that she was going to go ahead and make the decision that I physically could not, because I literally was, whether it was shock, whether it was something else, I was just in stunned silence. So I agreed to let her make the decision, and we committed to making him comfortable, because as part of that conversation, we had to ask some very critical questions, some very god-awful questions as far as his quality of life, his pain, whether or not his features would deteriorate due to the potential domino effect, how long would it drag on, and would it meet the ultimate conclusion where we could basically save a lot of time, pain, and agony, and provide him with some measure of dignity. Little did I know we were ultimately making the right choice, because 10 days later he was gone. 10 days later, on March 7th, 2015, his life journey came to an end, his fight came to an end, and I held his back to my chest, I held him in my lap, and I physically felt his life force expire. It was fucking god-awful. And even though he may have been at peace, we were not. And I'd like to tell you that that was it. I'd like to tell you that our suffering was over. But unfortunately, whether things come in threes or whatever the case may be, our individual suffering as a family was not over. I won't get into the details, as I feel as though I may have detailed that in a video from last year. I'm not suggesting that anybody cares to watch it, but if you go back on my channel, you could probably see where I made a more detailed video around this time last year. So, as our family was trying to wrap our heads around this crisis, around this holy fuck of a situation, the world itself continued to pile on. I won't go into the details, as I've done so in the past, but the world continued to pile on. For those of you that may watch my videos, for those of you that may subscribe to my channel, I don't know if this explains anything. I don't know if this offers you a perspective into my background, but on the 25th of February 2015, I was 3 days away from being fully retired on active duty from the United States Marine Corps after having served 20 years. 20 years of my life, 20 years of my adult life. All right? 3 days later, I would be a brand new civilian. 7 days later, as a brand new civilian, I would lose a child. All right? All the support, all the camaraderie, everything that would have been available as a result of my service was gone. All right? So I honestly felt as though I had to deal with it by myself, alone. You know, a lot of my friends, as you can imagine, are guys, and no disrespect, no male chauvinism intended, but a lot of my buddies work. They're breadwinners, they're earners. So, you know, when I needed them, they were unfortunately unavailable because, you know, the world keeps moving. You know, life keeps going. In spite of the fact that you want life to slow down, you need things to kind of hit the brakes for a little while you try to cope and wrap your head around what the fuck is going on. Life keeps moving, and my friends kept moving. And honestly, I don't think my friends also understood that I just needed someone to talk to. That I don't think my friends understood that I needed them to take a time out if they could spare it. And a lot of them, no fault of their own, didn't quite understand that, and they weren't there. So I suffered through this, for the most part, alone. And I can only imagine what kind of effect it had on me. Not to mention, 20 years in the military, 5 combat deployments, some of the crazy shit that I've seen in the military, both on deployments, on combat deployments, and just in the regular world due to things that we dealt with in the military. And then on top of it, losing my son, and then everything that followed as a result of that. We are the sum total of our experiences, and we're also the sum total of the consequences of our decisions. And it shapes who we are, and it shapes how we see and view the world. All right? So when I provide opinions on subjects, when I espouse my beliefs or my thoughts or my opinions, you know, they're coming from the sum total of my experiences in life. Now, I'll be 46 in April. Does that make me old? Does that make me wise? Does that make me, you know, experienced? In some cases, yes. In some cases, no. I hopefully have a lot of life to live, and I will hopefully continue to live and learn and look back on previous experiences and, you know, be able to see things and be like, wow, you know, I could have handled that better. I could have done things differently. And that's oftentimes the perspective I bring to my videos too, where I try to challenge others to be like, well, are you perfect? Have you made 0 mistakes? Are you infallible? Have you handled every situation perfectly? Have you handled every crisis terrifically? You know, like textbook, you know, how people should handle things? You know, or have you made mistakes? Have you stumbled? Have you tripped and fallen and, you know, scraped your knees and had to get back up again and, you know, looked back on it and been like, okay, well, maybe next time I'll do things differently as I gather this experience. So that's really all, you know, I attempt to ask of people who do take the time to watch my videos is, you know, before you demonize somebody, before you try to characterize or label somebody with derogatory terms and labels, maybe try to see things from their perspective. Sometimes it just is what it is. Sometimes a turd is a turd. You know, you just can't put enough frosting on it and call it a cupcake. It's still going to be a turd. And yet sometimes maybe it's something else. All right? So with that in mind, if you took the time to watch this, I appreciate it. If you can resist the compulsion to say something like sorry for your loss, I would appreciate that, because I've been through it. More importantly, if you want, leave a comment on whether or not you can relate to anything. If maybe that's open your mind to something, you know, so we can have a conversation about that. I would appreciate that. And if you can do that, thank you. You're awesome. Red Friday. Remember, everyone deployed.